It can be quite bewildering to watch a contortionist twist and fold themselves in rather strange and unusual positions, some who stretch the skin wide and others who protrude eyes out from the socket. Like this young Churchill Otieno, aka the Snake Man.
So nikafika form 1 ndio nikaanza kujua naweza fanya zifu za ajabu. Yani wakati wanasema zifu za mashitani unajua.
According to Dr. Angela Migowa, a pediatric rheumatologist at Aga Khan University Hospital here in Nairobi, the ability to do so is due to a genetic disorder that affects the body's ability to synthesize collagen.
The reason why our body is intact and organs and structures are not floating all over the place is because they're held in position by what we call connective tissue. And sometimes there's a problem with this coding such that the building block of this fiber-like structure is abnormal, so that the fiber now is very loose. One of the things they present with is very flexible joints. So sometimes they can do things other people cannot do, like do the splits, do wheel carts, or put your leg behind your neck, things that most people can't do.
Experts warn that with time, the hyperflexibility takes a toll on the body. Well, while some have made a living out of the hyperflexibility of their joints and skins, to others, it is a battle to be alive every single day. 9-year-old Nicolina Njeri Nyoike is living with one of the collagen conditions known as Marfan Syndrome. This disorder affects connective tissues such as the heart, eyes, blood vessels, and the bones. As a result, she is set for an adjustment of pedicle screws and rod fitted in her body in January to straighten her spine.
He has grown more taller than expected, so she is in a very severe pain because of the spine. It has curved again.
So in Marfan Syndrome, there's a modification in what we call the fibrillin gene that's responsible for building that strong string-like structure to hold your organs and tissues in place. The connective tissue around that wall is already weak and flabby, all right? Then that pipe is at risk of rupture. Sometimes you might not be so fortunate, and it could be involving big vessels that would just rupture suddenly. So one of the things we normally ask in the family history is that, do you know of anybody who had a sudden death that was unexplained?
As she turned 3, her parents say they got extra worried as their last-born daughter had not started walking despite having very long toes. She said they suspected her tall frame and weak legs were responsible for her delayed walking.
There's something we call the arm span length to height ratio, because technically the distance between your arms, all right, from one end of one arm to the other should not be greater than your overall height. So, a simple measurement like that can, but so if you find that it is greater than the height, then you start wondering, could we be dealing with a collagen disorder like Marfan's?
But they established that Njeri's spine was slightly bent after an X-ray. After a visit to a pediatrician, it was determined that Njeri, other than the bent spine, had a big aorta and was sucking a lot of blood, overworking the blood valves.
It's important to remember that the mom and dad could have normal genes, but the child can have a spontaneous mutation. It would help you pick this early. Of course, when you hear somebody is very flexible, those are the things we look out for. Or seems to bleed very easily, those are the things we look out for. Or seems to form very prominent scars. Even a slight scratch, they form such a huge scar. That's something to look out for. Or what we call, these are very simple things you can do, even as a parent, hyperextensibility, whereby, when you pinch the skin, it shouldn't be able to form such a huge, how can I call it, like huge tenting.
Marfans is categorized as a rare disease with an estimation that for every 10,000 or 20,000 people globally, there are about 1 to 2 people who will have Marfan Syndrome, and about 5 to 10,000 in the country who could potentially get the disorder at one particular time.
They have diseases people don't understand well, and because these diseases don't necessarily kill quickly, like very severe infection, so they often go ignored. But the impact, the psychosocial impact, and the frustration and the depression and the mental health impact on these families is quite significant.
The cost of managing Marfan Syndrome has weighed a burden on this family and the young girl who is required to undergo a series of surgeries in India to try and place a road to correct the condition.
They said we have to go back to India to do the second enlargement, because the rods have to be pulled and they have to be enlarged as per her growth where she is, as we wait for her again to grow again and see this enlargement of the rods is a continuous process.
Eunice Omolo, NTV, Nairobi.